For crowdfunding, I think
it
any
was
amount
$100 for ours. The minimum was $100. You spend $100 easily
on some sneakers.
Sometimes on coffee. I mean,
If
go
you
to
add it for a
Starbucks.
week,
I was going to say, go to Starbucks for a month.
For a month, you spend $100.
easily spent $100. So I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, this is where we got to take certain things that we have not been afforded and really use it to our advantage so that we can make not only our generation better, but the next.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Kickback with Keri podcast. I'm excited for today's guest. She is a co-owner, co-founder of Boyd Cru Wines. The brand has been featured on Fox 5 DC, Afrotech, Yahoo. If you're in the DMV area, you can purchase Boyd Cru Wines at Urban Grape, the Target in DC, and Total Wine down the street from my house.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to welcome Jon'll Boyd. Welcome, girl, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you, Keri. I am elated to be here. Okay, this kicks off my day. Look, Kickback with Keri, it kicks off my day.
Hey, and if you are not familiar with Boyd Cru, make sure you go to their website. We're going to talk about all about the brand, how you got started. I am rocking my Boyd Cru sweatshirt. Okay,
cultivating my legacy. Come on now.
I had to be on brand today, and so I'm super excited. I know I found your brand. Shout out to y'all social media platform.
Yes.
Because I think you guys hosted an event, and I think someone shared it within, like, we have a girls chat on Instagram, and then someone shared it in our group chat, and we're like, oh yeah. So that's when we did the girls outing at Savage Mills, and I was like, yes, I'm the event coordinator for the group, and we are here.
Hey, every group needs an event coordinator. Okay.
But before we jump all the way in, let's cheers.
Yes, absolutely.
What is cheers?
With our brand new
sparkling
Vidal Blanc.
And I get the exclusive, guys. Oh, that's good.
Come on, sparkling.
Yes. Listen, we got one of the first bottles. It's not even labeled.
Not even labeled. Okay, straight off the belt line. Okay.
Okay, that's good. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we're gonna get all into the different wines, all the offerings, everything Boyd Cru is doing, because you guys do a lot in the community. You guys are everywhere, which I love. But let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
So I looked online. You have a background in marketing.
Yeah.
You started Boyd Cru with your husband, Matthew.
Yeah.
He's pharmaceutical sales. So how did y'all come up with, with those two backgrounds to say, hey, now it's time for us to launch a wine brand?
Right. Like, we didn't have anything else to do. So Matthew and I, we have always enjoyed wine.
Mm-hmm.
It has been something that's I always say it's kind of been in the backdrop of just our experiences growing up, even, meeting each other. Like, we met at a wine bar.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, this
we
is so
really
serious.
did.
This makes sense.
Right. And at the time it didn't resonate, right?
Yeah.
But we did. We met at a wine bar. We got married at kind of like not a winery, but it was like a resort that had a very extensive wine, presence and list. Matthew's grandfather used to actually make wine in his kitchen, so he ordered a couple of barrels, or kind of crafted a couple of barrels. I don't know if ordered would be the right word, but he kind of crafted a couple barrels, and used to like to just tinker in the kitchen and try to like make his own wine. And Matthew and his siblings, he's one of 5. So they would all be in the kitchen helping him, and he would make it around Christmas time so that he could give it to his siblings. So he even has those memories. And then for me, my family, my dad's side is from Louisiana. They have a little Creole, little Haitian. And they enjoy a good bottle of wine.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have it on the table, while everybody, go around kind of talking and telling stories, and we have it on the table. And that's what would bring up kind of the fond memories and the stories and things like that, right? Not to mention you're a little girl and your grandmother is like, here, girl, take this little sip, okay? I'm like, I better not tell nobody because I don't think we're supposed to be doing this, Grandma.
But they rather you do it at home than outside.
And that's what she would say. Exactly. And that's what she would say. She was like, no, you gonna get this experience right here, right?
Exactly.
So it's things like that really sparked the interest and love for wine, and it just kept going. We would travel to different vineyards and different different regions, and we're like, oh, this is so awesome. Like the where the wine came from, the grape, the region, the soil, and so, while at the time we were kind of like, people would say, you should really think about doing this seriously. You're like, yeah, no, thank you, because we got so much going on. But then it just started to resonate, especially as we entered the pandemic. So I always say the pandemic was kind of the catalyst for us, because my business at the time, I owned an event planning business. It came to a screeching halt,
Right, because
which nobody was gathering.
right?
Exactly. And that just left me a lot of time to research and really start thinking about this more seriously.
It sounds like, so basically wine is in y'all's DNA.
It
was only a matter of time.
It is, yeah. So it's funny how you don't notice certain patterns until kind of things come full circle.
I agree. Yeah, and it's one of those like, how can this all be used? Kind of like you don't think about it, like, as you mentioned. Just like, oh, this is just family. This is something that we do. But really, it was planting the seed.
It was planting the seed,
because you guys have had a lot of growth in a short amount of time. Now I know you don't have a physical winery, like
not yet.
Not yet. They're gonna have one though.
That's right. That's the goal.
We claiming that.
We claiming that. We putting it out there.
Yeah. So I know you guys use Cross Montgomery.
So Cross Vines.
Okay.
Is where we produce our wine.
Okay.
And really one of our goals was to be very hands-on, which is really a differentiator of ours. Is that we wanted to be very hands-on with making our wine. The decisions that come along with, like, what barrel are you going to use? What type of yeast strain do you want to use? How long do you want it fermented? All of these decisions that winemakers make. Yeah. We wanted to be the ones to make those so that we can really speak to our community and people who have questions about winemaking, because a lot of times these are not the things that people get to hear or get to experience. Yeah. So we're like, you know what? We want to be able to be knowledgeable about that because we're actually doing it. And even though we didn't want to incur or needed to be mindful about incurring the expense of, having our own facility right in the beginning, we're like, how can we still do the process while we grow, right? A lot of people elect to ship their wine in from somewhere else, and they may have like somebody making it out in California. I was going to ask
you that when you mentioned you wanted to be a part of the process. Is it common for people to usually just like kind of hands off and their name is on it? They may be a part of the process, but they're not as ingrained as you are, as you guys are.
I won't say everybody, right? But I think there is different ways to approach this based on what your end goal is, right? Like some people are like, I just want to have a brand. I just, it's more about the brand and what the brand stands for. I'm not really as concerned with what's in the bottle. Yeah. For us, it was, no, we want the brand to grow, but we also are very much concerned with what's in the bottle for a number of reasons, because we knew that this was not just going to stay a brand, that we're going to build this into a winery and a vineyard, And so why not start with the process that's going to help us to get there by making our own wine, right? Secondly, because I'll be honest, we probably should do a better job of talking about this, but our wines don't have any preservatives or additives. And most of our wines, which the Living Legacy being one of them, has 0 sugar.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, we need...
Right? Okay, you feel me?
Yeah.
So, like, as a woman who enjoys wine, one of the challenges I always ran into was, why is it the next day I have a headache?
Is that because of the sugar?
It is. I know. And see, that's a misconception that people don't realize. So here's a question
for you then, before you continue, is, does that mean less, I don't know if it's less quality is the right word, but you could say like less expensive, not as wine that isn't as good quality when you do have a headache? That's because they probably use more sugar.
So not just necessarily sugar, but it might be that they're also using different additives and preservatives that are also causing, some of that headache. Yeah. But also think about it. I don't know if you've ever experienced where the next day you feel bloated. that's also due to additives and preservatives that are put in the wine. So I sometimes will wake up the next day, not only would I have a headache, but then I'd be like, ooh, why do I feel so ick, right? And trying to figure that out. And I'm like, okay, these are grapes. Like they grow from the ground.
Right.
I'm like, so something else
Is in there.
is in there.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so then we started doing research on that. And when we were in a position to make our own wine, I said, okay, so here are some of the things we're not going to do, because not only do we want people to enjoy it, but we also care about what's going in your body.
Yeah. Well, I learned something new today because I had no idea.
I know. And that's why I said we actually are planning in 2025 to talk much more about the quality of the wine.
So how did you guys find Crossvine? Because I had never, of course, I mean, I'm not in the wine industry, so of course I wouldn't know. But I did do when I, was looking online, doing some research, and then I saw, I forget the guy's name, but I guess he's part of Crossvines, and he was talking about the importance of small businesses, basically being a space for them to come and grow businesses and stuff. Like, how'd you guys come across Crossvine in the first place as an option? Because I'm sure for a lot of people who want to get in the industry, not having a physical location is going to be a barrier for entry.
It's absolutely is a barrier. The industry itself has a lot of barriers that have prohibited certain demographics of people to be able to enter the industry for a very long time. And we desire to change that. Yeah. But to your question, we started doing research. One of the things we did right away, especially once we figured out we wanted to create our business right here in Maryland, we said, okay, what are some of the associations or organizations that could point us in the right direction? And so I remember one of the organizations that we linked up with or became a part of was Maryland Wine Association very early on. And that was, basically so that we could really understand, okay, who are some of the other wineries out here? What are some of the things that we need to know as we start to build this wine company? And they were helpful in kind of guiding or at least having an outline for what that should look like. Yeah. And so one of the questions that we posed was, what wineries will help to guide or facilitate winemaking for other wineries, up and coming wineries, right? Starting wineries. And at the time, Crossvines did not exist when we first started that process, right?
So they're still relatively new also.
Very new. They actually opened their doors, oddly enough, simultaneously right around the same time that we opened ours. Nice. And so I call it very serendipitous that that timeline just aligned in the way that it did. But prior to that, we had found or built a relationship with another vineyard on the Eastern Shore called Crow. And they are still, they still are there, and they still actually do help us to facilitate winemaking. But we started building a relationship with them because they have been making wine for 20 plus years. And so one of the things that I think is very instrumental in this industry is to find people who have been doing what they do for a very long time and can guide you in a purposeful way because they understand, they've already done it.
And there's no gatekeeping.
And there's that part, and there's no
gatekeeping.
And they did not, they wanted to make sure, I'll be very, very transparent. They wanted to make sure that we had done our due diligence and, had put some skin in the game, because I'm sure they get approached all the time with, hey, I want to make wine, or hey, I want to, start a wine brand. So they did want to make sure that there were certain things that we had already put into place, certain things that we had already looked at, researched, and what was our kind of long-term goal, right? But once we kind of divulged that and had those conversations, they were very instrumental in helping us to get started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because I know your brand is very big on community. Even the names, which we'll get into a little bit later, is based around community.
Absolutely.
So what void do you think Boyd Cru is filling with your brand? Because there are a lot of brands of wine. And one thing, we always hear, like, if you go to the store And you go to the bread aisle, there's 10,000 different breads, but they all offer something
Yeah,
different.
something different,
They
right?
all offer, that's why there's so many, because there's
Right.
something for everybody.
Yep,
So what do you
exactly.
feel with Boyd Cru? I think I know, just because I'm familiar with the brand.
Sure.
And I've gone to events, and clearly I buy bottles.
Yes.
And I'm an investor. But what
Yes.
do you think is one of the voids you guys feel?
Yeah, so I think aside from us being minority
Yes.
owned, right? Black and woman owned. I think that definitely is a void that we feel. But aside from that, I really think it is the fact that we are very intentional about being in the community.
Yes.
I've said this before in a couple of interviews that, I've seen other companies make the decision to go straight retail with their brands. And there's nothing wrong with that because, as you mentioned earlier, we are in several retailers as well. But the way we started was out in the community, doing events, hosting wine experiences, doing wine education in a approachable way.
I agree, because I think when I came across you guys, I think you guys were only like 6 months in.
Exactly.
It was still within the first year.
Still
and y'all
within
were
the
out
first
here.
year. And we were out there like boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of our biggest differentiators is that when we say we are out here amongst our people, we are out here because that's where we want to be, and I'll be honest, I don't see that changing even as we establish our brick and mortar winery. I don't see that changing because we really do have a commitment to being out in the community. Why? Because I think number one, there are a lot of things that people don't realize wine helps to change. It's sometimes, and that's something we want to change too. Sometimes it gets a bad rep for being pretentious, being kind of elitist, and then also just being an alcohol, right? People are like, oh my God, why are you selling this poison? Well, you know what? It is about it is less about habit and behavior. It's more about habit and behavior than it is the product, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, you don't, at no times do you ever see us touting to over pour, over serve, or to get wasted. Right. Like, we are very much about, this is for enjoyment. This is for connection. This is for community building. And it absolutely serves those purposes.
It does, because I tell you, we opened this bottle when I had a girls' night.
Yes.
Okay? And between the 6, 7 of us, it was finished.
That's what I'm saying.
It was enough for everyone to get a pour.
Exactly. And those are the moments that honestly bring people together.
Yeah, they are.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you guys had some amazing conversations that came out of that, brought you guys even closer together. And when we hear about those moments and the fact that we were able to be a part of that, I'll be honest, it just makes my heart sing because
and we will send it to each other. I'll be like, oh, they're having this event, and we were going to try to go. I think you guys were doing the wine. I think it was with More Than Java.
Oh, yeah.
The cocktails. We were going to try to go to that. So yeah, we follow y'all.
Right. And that sold out quick. But we
follow y'all. I'm like, okay, they got events. Which one we trying to go to? So.
Right. And then also think about where we are as a economy, right? Yep. Like, a lot of right now, and I feel, and you tell me what you think, but ever since the pandemic, I feel like people want to be connected, but not necessarily like out partying and stuff. They want to be connected in a more meaningful way.
Well, see, I think, because I'm a millennial.
Okay.
Well, I'm older, elder, millennial, whatever. But being born in the 80s, growing up.
I am too. Right? I'm just scratching,
the
like
surface.
hanging on by a thread
like,
over here.
Edge, right? But I mean, but being born in the 80s, growing up in the 90s, like, community, because we grew up before social media, before, we saw the evolution of this phone. It used to be a car phone, then it was a cell phone, no internet, then dial up. But I think we had the privilege of not having other distractions. Right. And so, like, I had sleepovers, not just birthdays, like, oh, it's a Saturday, my friends want to come over, we'd have sleepovers. Yes. Trick-or-treating when we got older, our parents didn't have to go with us, so the crew would go trick-or-treating. So the crew would
just go out.
When you're in high school, the friends hang out, my parents be like, well, I'm not going to tell you what time we'd be home, but you got a permit.
But
or,
you
got a
don't walk in
whatever.
Here, right.
You know what time you're supposed to be home.
Exactly.
We hung out with friends, and so we came from being raised and being in community and being amongst each other. And then I agree, once COVID happened, that separated us. And then I think people realized how much they missed community. And now that we're the generation that's we're older, like, I'm not trying to drive to DC every time I want to go out. Because we used to be in DC all the time. And this one,
Exactly.
my friends never outside. Okay?
Exactly.
But now we're just like, and I think that's too why you see a lot of suburban areas pushing more entertainment, more things to do, because we're not going into the city.
Exactly.
But we are looking, part of the platform for the Kickback too is community. Like, we have the newsletter, we have the podcast, but I still also want to do community events because I want a way for us to like get together, be amongst each other. So I definitely agree. We just need,
I think you summed it up perfectly. Like, we are that generation that understood the importance of community in so many different aspects of our lives, you know, and it's ingrained in us. So we're like, we don't want to lose that. And how do we preserve that now that we're older?
You got kids,
in a way that makes sense.
People live different areas, different places. So it's just like even when I lived in California, most of my friends were here. So it's like, I would text everybody, all right, I'm gonna be home this week. And it's like, get on the calendar because I couldn't get that out there because there's that connection, that piece that's missing. So
I love that.
I think that's what everyone's craving for right now, in different, more organic, authentic, less like we got to do the most.
Exactly.
Just like, where we meeting up?
Just where we meeting up. Exactly. With a good glass of wine
and that's it.
And some conversation. That's all we need.
And that's all we need. Yes. So I think that's exactly where we are right now.
Yes, I totally agree.
For the foreseeable future.
I mean, like, honestly, but I see us going back to things that, again, were ingrained in us when we were younger. And so it's like we're returning to that. It's like a return to what makes us feel grounded and what makes us feel whole.
Because even when I was younger, my parents, like, we were the house, people come over for New Year's.
All the time.
So the adults are upstairs, the kids are downstairs. They call us up.
Our door was always open.
They call us when it's time to like ring the bell and stuff. When the ball would drop, we have our noisemakers.
Yes.
Even if it was like Friday night, my parents' friends, she would do a fish fry on a Friday night. So we would go to their house. Like, that was how we were raised.
Yes.
Your parents' friends having something, everybody's
coming. Everybody, and that was understood.
Yeah,
like, oh, we going over there. My grandmother, she was the queen of hosting a Super Bowl party. Everybody knew Barbara Ruffin was gonna be in the kitchen cooking some greens, cooking some chitlins. Y'all don't judge me. I'm from the South. I don't eat those no more. But
you're like, but I did.
But I did. Okay. But she was gonna be in that kitchen doing that while everybody was watching the game and came over and had a drink and was eating and just having a good time.
Yeah. And I think even though I try to relinquish that responsibility amongst my group, they won't let me. I think that's probably why I'm that way too. Just like, cause I'm I'm an only child. So it's like my friends are my family.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what we doing?
Exactly.
At this point, I don't even ask them. I literally would just send a calendar invite, say this is girls' night at the crib. If you can come, they know to come.
Exactly.
If they can't, cool. If I decide to cook, I'll let them know what I need to bring. If we're going to order, I'll tell them where we ordering and send me some.
Right.
Like, they know.
They know.
What you need me to do? Okay, friend. I need you to do. They don't even ask questions.
Because there has to be an organizer. And then there has to be, everybody kind of falls in line according to the organizer, right?
I've accepted it. I try to let it go between multiple friend groups.
No, don't let it go. That's your purpose.
It is. Between multiple friend groups, even my work friends, is a group of us that we all met. And we all don't work together anymore, but we still keep in touch. Yeah. Even that, it's like, okay, who's playing? Keri's going to play happy hour. I was like,
that's right. just own it.
I try to let it go, but they won't let me. So
just own it. It's yours.
It is. It is. So you guys have had an amazing growth in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What do you think has been the biggest factor or contributor to the growth in such a short amount of time?
So if I made two things, one would be the preparation. We get that comment a lot, like, how are you doing all these things and you've only been, in business up under 2 years? But I have to remind people that what you have seen is 2 years, is up under, 2 years. But what has been going on up under the surface, the foundation that was laid, started 3 years ago, right? And then even the seed of it started 15 years ago when we were even just rumorating over this thing, right? But the real put into action started 3 years ago. So I think sometimes, and we do that a lot just as a society when we see somebody, just out here picking up fast and we're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, they became a celebrity overnight. It's like, no, but they didn't. A lot of great things look like they happened overnight, but you don't see the day in, day out work that people are putting in behind the scenes, that they are putting in while they're also trying to live life. I mean, we got 2 boys who still want to be 11 and 8 and have a childhood and do the things that 11 and an 8-year-old would do. And they hold us accountable. Like, that's great that you got your little business.
Not little business.
But
not little business. But I gotta
right.
They're like, but we got a game on Saturday. So
but
what?
we got right.
Yeah.
Like I got invited to a birthday party. So who's taking me, right? And as they should be. So I say all that to say we've really had to be mindful about doing our due diligence, researching, setting the foundation. Making sure, I say all the time, write the vision, make it plain, writing things down, getting our business plan, doing grant, pitching for grants and funding. And so there's a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes that people don't see. And so now I look at it as we're just seeing the fruits of our labor. I don't see it as overnight because Lord knows it doesn't feel overnight sometimes.
One thing I do love that you also do is have boundaries.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I reached out originally, you're like, I don't do Sundays. That's family day. I said, I love that. Yeah. Because I think when you're in the entrepreneurial space, it's easy to try to be 24/7.
It is.
In the business, the business all the time and not make space and room for anything else.
Yeah.
So I love that you have set boundaries early.
And let me just say, because I don't want to act like I'm look, I just came out of the entrepreneurship ship like that. It took my first business to teach me because I had no boundaries in my first business. I was all over the place. And in addition to my first business, thank God for my husband, because the areas that I lack, he's strong, and vice versa. The areas that he lacks, I'm strong. One thing that he has always made very clear is that we keep the main thing. And he is like, family comes first, right? And while I have had, that has challenged me in ways, it also has been a great reminder because family is first, and sometimes we lose sight of that in the entrepreneurial journey, like you said, because we're so one track minded, like the business. But what is the business if everything over here is falling apart?
Right. Right. And I was going to ask you about that too, working with the spouse. How do you guys...
Girl. Did I just say that out loud?
Well, let's talk about it then. Because one of my friends who you met, I had on the podcast earlier, Renee, she also works with her spouse.
Okay.
And so one of my questions always is for people who work with their spouse is like, what's it like? And that might be a loaded question. Like, what's it like to work with your spouse? And 2, how do you guys find the balance to make sure you're not like over consumed with work? Like I know for her, she said like if they have date night, they're not allowed to talk about work. Yeah. Right? Like that's the one thing they can't talk about. Like they have to talk about each other, their own individual, things that they want to do, but work is
off the table.
Because they work together all the time.
Right.
So how have you and Matthew been able to like strike a balance for your relationship or find balance?
I'm gonna keep it 100. It was challenging in the beginning because while I have been an entrepreneur before, he has not, right? He still actually works his 9 to 5 in pharmacy. So I work in the business full time. He works in it part time. So initially, we had a lot of bumping of heads because we are 2 very different people. But that's what makes us work, right? And so I think for us, what we had to realize is it's not about trying to make the other person see the other person's perspective. It's really more about trying to appreciate the difference, right? Like, okay, you always over here talking about, well, how much does it cost? What does it cost? Okay, and what does that mean? We're gonna profit, and what does that? And why you spending that? And where you? And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, like, can we just do this, please, because it's going to help. But taking a step back, I'm like, okay, I need that because I have not always traditionally been the strong one when it comes to finances.
Gotcha.
I'm very much like, okay, I see the cost, but I also see the vision, and the vision requires that. So let's do
Let's
it.
just do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is not always the way you need to be, right?
Yeah. Like, you need somebody who needs reality check sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need that balance of somebody who's like, okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that doesn't need to happen right now. Not saying it can't, but not right now, right?
To help shift, so he kind of helps shift priorities.
Priorities,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I appreciate that, right? I didn't always, but I do now. and vice versa. I am very much a visionary person. And so he has had to shift himself to be like, okay, yeah, we actually do need that because we need to know where this ship is going. And she has a vision for that. She's very clear on it. And so he can appreciate that part of me that is willing to dream big, but also understand there's a roadmap to get there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the key for us, is understanding that. I will say, you mentioned your friend about not talking about, that's a part that we're still trying to do better at. Okay. Yeah.
It's hard.
It's hard. It's very easy for us to be sitting somewhere and all of a sudden, okay, so what happened today and how the sales looking and how this and dot. You know what helps us with that though? The kids. Because again, they don't care about your little business. They like, so
this is what happened to me today.
This is what happened to me today. And I had to go to such and such class. And do you know that my teacher said such and such and such? And then do you know little Timmy said such and such and such? Okay, so they're like, no, I have a whole world and I need you to listen because you're my parental.
Exactly.
So that helps us to transition out of that very quickly because they got their own world. And we appreciate that, right? So, but we're still working. It's a work in progress.
Girl, we are all works in progress. It'll probably always be a work in progress as long as you're just working together.
Yeah.
So what do you think, outside of working with your spouse, because that's going to be a different challenge, but in the business, what do you think has been one of the hardest challenges you guys had to overcome launching?
I would say going back to the finances, right? Okay. Yeah. So we self-funded quite a big chunk of this when we first started, close to $30,000-$40,000, and took that directly out of our savings. And we both have different risk tolerances, and so there was a lot of conversation that had to happen around that. And okay, if we're going to do this, then what does this mean in terms of maybe things that we aren't going to be able to do, right? At least for right now, because we got to tighten the belt a little bit in order to make this happen over here. So I think, one of the biggest lessons for entrepreneurs is just understanding the sacrifice that you're making in the immediate term, but that it's going to be a reward in the long term, right? And me being the visionary I am, it was easier for me to swallow that pill because I understand that sometimes you got to make the sacrifice now, but the long term is going to pay off. I think for him, it was a little bit more challenging because he's very analytical. And so it's like, okay, how does this make sense, right?
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, because that's a lot of money. I mean, I don't know about for other people, but for us, it is, And so I appreciate him pushing back. I also appreciate him really wanting to make sure we had a plan, because you can find yourself throwing a lot of money away, down the toilet very quickly in this industry if you don't have a plan.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can tell. So for entrepreneurs out there who are interested in this industry or any industry, have a plan.
Yes.
Invest in yourself, take the risk, but have a plan.
Yes. And let somebody, and I'll take it one step further, let somebody see that plan
to make sure it's sound.
to make sure that it's sound. As a matter of fact, ask them to poke holes in it. You know, I can remember going to one of my mentors and saying, hey, will you look at our business plan and tell me what's wrong? I didn't say tell me what's right. Tell me what's wrong.
That's
because I want to know, where am I going to hit the hiccups? Where could this might go wrong, so that I'm prepared for those things, right? Yeah.
Good point. That's definitely a good point. And one of the things we talked about before we started, which I want us to touch on, is about investing. Because we talked about, you know, there's the challenges, there's the, what's the word I'm looking for? Intimidation around investing, especially within our community. And I know you all use crowdfunding because I invested. Hey. Which was one of the things I'm really interested in doing more of, is investing in small Black-owned businesses. But one of the things we talked about was that a lot of people think that they can't be investors because usually it's an accredited investor. You have to have a certain income threshold. Angel investor, you have to have an income threshold and all these other requirements. But talk a little bit about the crowdfunding that you guys did and how that worked.
So I love that you are bringing that up, because it used to be that you, as a just a regular person in the community, that you could not invest. There are actually laws created that said, unless your overall income is at this amount, you are not considered an accredited investor. Like, you are not considered somebody who can go out and invest in these big businesses. And think about how that creates further gaps in wealth. Exactly. Right. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade, right? Certain people are always kept out of doing things. And so, you know, when the laws changed and crowdfunding entered the scene, it was for the purpose of any person in the community being able to start investing in these big businesses to be able to benefit from some sort of return on investing in these. I mean, think about it. How often do you use Charmin toilet paper in your house? Like, we had that whole issue, well, we still do, where if there's a crisis coming, what's the first thing people go out and buy? Toilet paper. You should have been buying soap during Thank COVID. You. I was like, why soap? Listen, disinfectant, all those things. But but for the life of me, we have this obsession with toilet paper. So you know, why would you not want to invest in something that you know you use all the time, every day, all day, and it's not going anywhere, right? But that used to be prohibited until now. So now, as a regular citizen, you can invest not only in big businesses, but small businesses that are getting their foot off the ground, that are trying to grow, and not just trying to grow, but trying to grow so that they can actually better their own community, right? So you're going to be able to see this coffee shop, you know, grow into a successful business that you stop by every day and get a cup of coffee on your way to work, you know, that you telework in sometimes. You know, for us, it was, you're going to be able to see us grow. You're going to be able to see as we continue to harvest these grapes, and then at some point have a brick and mortar that is a winery, and then at some point have a vineyard that is growing our own vines. And you will be able to say, I go by there every day, you know, or I go by there all the time and drink their wine, or me and my friends, me and my family come there on special occasions, or I'm an investor. And so I was a part of that growth. To me, that is so special to be able to say that. And to then turn around and be able to pass that on to your kids or your family and say, look what you have contributed to. That's a huge deal.
And I love that crowdfunding is available now. And I think it was important to bring that up only because I feel like even when you hear that, you think like, oh, I have to have 100, 200, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. I'm like, for crowdfunding, it was, I think, any amount.
It was $100 for ours. The minimum was $100. You spend $100 easily
on some sneakers.
Sometimes on coffee. I mean,
If
go
you
to
add it for a
Starbucks.
week,
I was going to say, go to
I mean,
Starbucks for a month.
For a month, you spend
You
$100.
easily spent $100. So I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, this is where we got to take certain things that we have not been afforded and really use it to our advantage so that we can make not only our generation better, but the next.
And so you guys did crowdfunding.
Yes.
What was the crowdfunding for?
So it was for a number of purposes. We wanted to expand our distribution because going back to earlier, I would say one of the challenges in the wine industry is distribution for small suppliers like us. And right now we self-distribute in Maryland and DC, but we actually in 2025 have a goal of moving into New York, PA, as well as starting to hit some of the more southern states like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So that's a big stretch goal for us, but we're very excited and very confident that we'll make it happen. The second thing was bringing on team members because, again, like you heard me say earlier, it's been a 1.5 man team around here. Okay. And, while we enjoy what we do and very much are appreciative that we are family owned, family extends beyond just the people that you were born with. It is all about people who come into the fold, treat you like family, and have those similar, values and things like that. And so we have brought on 4 new wine consultants.
Really? Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, they are amazing. 1 marketing associate, 4 wine consultants. And we're just excited. They're phenomenal people, have a love for, the wine industry, but more importantly, have a love for what they see us trying to do. Yeah. And, they've already drunk the Kool-Aid or the wine. So, and then lastly, we are embarking on opening our tasting room,
which I can't wait.
Yes, I'm so excited. I've been meeting with contractors. So we're slated to open April 2025. And the location, drum roll, will actually be at Savage Mill.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh,
so talk about
yes.
talk about full circle because they were one of the places. That's where we originally met you.
Yeah, but that's one of the places you guys had your events.
Exactly. Exactly. They have been so welcoming. The community there has been welcoming.
I love that.
And it's a great place in terms of being centrally located.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're in DC or if you're in Baltimore, it's smack dab in the middle. It's really also centrally located as it relates to Maryland because you can get from Montgomery County, Prince George's County with under 30 minutes.
And Savage Mill is a great space for small business. They do a lot to support small businesses there. They do a lot.
Yes.
Shout
out to them because they have really turned that building into something special. So we're just excited to contribute to it. We already have started working with a architect to do the blueprinting, renderings, and the interior design. So it's going to be fabulous.
Listen, it's close. It's like 10 minutes from me.
I'm
going to probably be there. I'll be like, hey, so.
Right. What are we doing tonight?
Are y'all open today, Jon'll? Are y'all open today? Because me and the girls trying to slide through for happy hour.
Right. That's right.
What we doing? Let's get into some of these wines that you have over here. Let's get into that.
And I'm going to pour a little bit more bubbly, if you don't mind, because the bubbly is bubbling. I am actually really excited for y'all to get y'all hands on this.
This is what we mean when we say the kickback, okay?
Exactly.
This is the kickback
Yes, exactly.
So one of the things we mentioned earlier is that your bottles are all around community, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about this white and we have the red and the name. How did you guys come up with these? I think on the back you have, let me see. Yeah, the mood and the moments. How did you guys come up with the mood and the moments?
Yeah. So I'll start with the front of the bottle because, as you mentioned, the name is very intentional. All of the names of our wines are surrounded or emphasize community. how, and also our values as a company. So this one is called Living Legacy. And obviously one of the things that's most important to us is that we are living our legacy through this business. Our a lot of our family during the pandemic, we had 3 people pass away. And, one of the things that came to both of our minds was, how do we continue to live their legacy?
Beautiful.
They were community oriented. Yeah. They were family oriented. They were all about giving back, and we were like, okay, that's what we want to do. I always say, like, the people who are no longer here, they are still here through you.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, and then the artwork on the front of all of our, it's called minimalist art. But art is very much infused to what we do because we feel like winemaking is a form of art, right? It's like when I'm in there blending the different varietals, deciding what yeast to use, like, girl, it's like a whole art class happening,
and
right?
I've seen you post on Instagram before too, like, oh, today we're tasting, and you'll show like all the different ways you guys have to taste,
right? And it'd be like 100 bottles sitting on the,
and
I'm
you're like this one has this level of this.
Exactly.
Like, oh, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. It's really is. It's such a good mix of art and science, and so that's what this represents, is just, the artwork on the front. Here you see, like, several individuals, but this is a family, and this is our family. Aww. So we have Matthew's mom, who actually passed away from breast cancer. Our son, our oldest son, Alexander. This is my grandmother, and who passed away from lung cancer a while ago. And then this is our youngest son. So the idea was for the past to meet the future, right? So
hold it up in the
to
that camera so we can see.
So that's kind of the meaning behind some of the artwork. But every single one has a different story, right? So that's our community Vidal Blanc, and you'll see a bunch of different faces on the front of it. And those faces represent all the different people that come across our path that have just contributed to what we are doing, right? There have been so many people who have just poured into us for no reason. Like, they just are like, I see what you're doing and I want to help, right? And so that's why I say, like, you see us a lot, but what you don't see are the people that are pushing us, behind us. And so I think that's extremely important. On the back, now this is where we get into the fun.
We get the mood and the moment.
Exactly. So again, one of our, our differentiators, and when we were starting out, we used to ask people, we would literally randomly walk into wine stores. Okay. Think about this. Like, you see somebody random walking into a wine store and start talking to you, you'd be like, okay. A little strange, right? But we would just walk up to strangers and be like, so how are you deciding to pick your wine? Like, what's helping you? Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it was. But I have to say, if somebody walks up to me and they're a stranger in the store, I'm gonna be like, okay, move back. But but people are always kind, and we're like, what's helping you to decide what wine you want to get, right? Like, which bottle are you looking at? And so the first thing would always be the packaging. They'd be like, oh, this is a beautiful bottle right here. Like, look at the design, look at the artwork, look at the colors. So we knew that we wanted something vibrant, right? Because that always attracted people. Like, anytime that would be the first thing they would say. Mm-hmm. The second thing, they would be like, well, I don't know a lot about wine. I don't really even know if this is going to taste good, but I'm kind of in the mood for a red, so I'm going to get a red. And
so the moods come
exactly. And so I'd be like, oh, you're in the mood for a red. Okay. So then we would dig a little bit deeper. Well, where are you about to go? They're like, oh, I'm about to go hang out with my friends. We just gonna kick it at the house, or, oh, I'm about to go to a birthday party, my friend's birthday. And so that led us to the mood and the moment. Like, okay, you're in the mood of X, right? You're like, I'm ready to unwind, or I'm ready to celebrate. Yeah. And then the moment is, where are you going, right? Where are you going to be experiencing this wine? And so that led us to pairing our wines with moods instead of foods, right? So you don't
Oh yeah, because
see.
usually it's like, oh, red, you would do a
Yeah.
steak.
So
White, you would do a
normally on the back of
chicken.
wine bottles, they'll have
Yeah.
recommended foods for pairings. And we were like, that's fine. And we'll certainly include that too. But what is another way that people really relate to wine? And because we tend to attract beginning wine drinkers or novice wine drinkers, we wanted to really provide them something a little bit different that would resonate with them, that didn't feel so intimidating, you
And I love
know?
that. Cause I was like, cause I remember when I did that video about this one. I did a
Yes.
video when I got the investor gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, my friends and I just finished this one, and the mood it was spot on in the moments because I'm like, for like this one is relatable swag, relaxed fun,
Yeah.
family gathering, day at the park, beach
Yeah.
vacay, which I need to take this to the beach when I go, and boardroom meeting. I was like, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
perfect description on how I would pair that one.
Pair
So,
that.
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's fun, it's relatable, it's approachable, and those are all the things that we are, so it just holds true to our brand and who we are. And we're gonna, again, going back to kind of where we see ourselves moving into 2025, we're gonna be pulling out more of that for people to really enjoy and resonate with.
I love that. So one of the things you guys we mentioned, before that you're very big on community, and I noticed you guys are part of. Is it called the True Collective?
Yeah, so the Crew Collective.
The Crew Collective.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Tell us about that because
Yeah.
I think I remember when you first launched, like when I became familiar with the brand, you guys partnered with that picnic company. But I saw that I was like, oh, they've expanded. And they got a little bit. So tell us about the Crew.
The Crew Collective.
Crew
So
Collective.
that is kind of our way of bringing in other small businesses.
Yeah.
Like one of the things we noticed in starting this is that one of the challenges that small businesses have a lot is just trying to get our product in front of our consumers. We have to be very creative. We don't always have the visibility right away. It can be hard when you don't have a brick and mortar where people can just consistently come to and know that you're there. And so we said, well, how do we create a opportunity and an atmosphere of collaboration?
Yeah.
Because we believe that collaboration is the way to success. Like if you out here winging it and doing it on your own and by yourself, good luck to you because it is very hard. As a small business, you need other businesses that are aligned in the way that you are aligned. You can pull your resources. And so that's really what the Crew Collaborative is all about. It's pulling our resources, bringing other small businesses into the fold. And one of the aspects of our tasting room when we launch in April or when we open it in April 2025 is that we're going to have a space called the Crew Corner.
And I was going to ask you if you were going to feature other brands.
Yes. Absolutely. That's who we are.
I know.
At the
I'm
heart.
like, I knew
right?
the answer already because I was like, she definitely going to do that.
We have a space called Crew Corner, the
I
Crew
love that.
Corner. And that space is going to be dedicated to us featuring other small business owners and their products all throughout the year. So we're probably going to do like a monthly rotation where you'll be able to come in, find all these different brands and businesses, and then the next month it'll rotate, and
if y'all need
we'll
help
be
finding,
featuring.
let me know.
Absolutely.
I'm passionate about this stuff.
Yes. We're gonna
Listen.
put an application together. People will be able to apply, say, hey, I want to sign up for this month. We'll probably have different categories, so that we're not like overlapping, but we'll have different categories and say, okay, you're going to be the business in the, candle category for this month. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So let me know.
Yes.
I will forward the application to people that I know.
Please do.
Spread the word.
Absolutely.
I love
Spread
that.
the word.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be there all the time.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. This is to be not just your traditional tasting room.
Yeah.
This is a community hub for people to come and hang out. And I mean, I'm even looking forward to us doing this. We're gonna do a kickback with Keri in the tasting room.
I want to do more. I need to find more Black-owned brands in Maryland because I want to do more on location stuff because I think that just gives you a different energy. So absolutely. Well, we're gonna have events there. I'm like,
Oh, hands down.
Kickback events, I'm gonna be like,
Yes.
so I'm gonna just need this block for just the community, for the Kickback community.
I love it.
But yes, we could definitely, because I think it would be great once you launch to kind of do like a follow up, like how things are going, after some amount of time.
And so we'll be sitting in the tasting room.
Yes, we'll be sitting in the tasting room. We could do a tour of the tasting room. We could talk about the brands that you guys feature.
I love it. I love it.
I'm holding you to it. You know I will.
Oh, listen, done and done. Yes, I love your follow up. She's a follow upper like me. I'm like, yes.
I'm just like, hey, I give you a little bit of room, and then I'm like, hey, remember that? Just follow up with that email I sent you.
That's how you do it.
You have to though.
Yes.
Like you have to follow up.
Yeah.
If you're trying to work with someone, collaborate with someone. That's one thing I'm learning, because I think in the past I've been the type, like, I'll send an email, request something, and if no one responds, like, okay, but...
Because sometimes we think we're bothering people,
right,
but we're not.
But you're not. Half the
people
time
are so
forget.
busy. That's what I'm saying. People are so busy.
Yeah.
And they've got a million things they're trying to do at one time. I know for one, I appreciate when people, because I'm like, oh, thank you. Because I'm like, I would have forgotten, you know?
So, yeah, I will be on my follow-up in 2025.
Okay.
But before we wrap up, I want to do a little rapid fire.
Yes.
I got some questions for you.
Let's do it.
I'm going to do like maybe 3, 4, see how we're feeling.
Okay.
Real quick.
All right.
I just grabbed a bunch. Hold on. Okay. So, what's been the most unexpected lesson you've learned about yourself through starting and launching Boyd Cru?
Oh my goodness. So, okay. Don't laugh at me. I have discovered that my toxic trait is that I really believe I can do anything.
Girl, doesn't the toxic about that?
Well, I'd say that because
because then you a little risky sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like I'm like, okay, Jon'll, like you were like going off the deep end with that one. But I really believe now with let me put some framework around that. It has to be faith led. Like I don't just be out here willy-nilly like, oh, today I'm gonna, build a plane. Like, no, like there has to be some framework around it. But if it is in alignment, and I feel like I am being led to do that, I really do believe I can do it. Yeah. And I've not always had that level of confidence, to be quite honest. But entrepreneurship will show you what you're truly made of, and not in an egotistical way, but just in a way that you're very grounded and aware of who you are, and I think that's where I am. Like, I am very clear on what my purpose is. I'm clear on where he's guiding me, and the things that I know that I know. Yeah. So yeah.
Go for it, girl. Go for it. Why not?
Why not?
I think I used to be that a little less fearless. Yeah. Was it fearless? Yeah. I would just be, in your 20s, I think you have that energy. And even in my early 30s, when I moved to California, I was like, I'm going. Like, I have this vision, I'm going. Right. And then I think I lost a little bit of that when I came back, because I'm trying to figure out like next steps. Mm-hmm. But I think now moving back to it, I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, life is short. Exactly. You only this is not a dress rehearsal.
That's right.
And the worst that can happen is something doesn't work out.
That's right. And you move on.
But you move on to the next thing. Because I remember I was talking to Tanisha from Bell's Reigns, and when I emailed her about donating the cookies for Lunch Bag Link Up, she said, I did. She's like, I did a little research. And she was like, you did a little bit of, I see you did a little bit of everything, but you got to do enough stuff to figure out. Yeah, you do. Where you're going. I said, I did a styling. I did this. I did that. She was like, yeah, you had a lot going on. But she's like, I think that's good, because you got to figure out.
Yeah, I think that's good. What works. I think I honestly believe that we were made to explore, so that we can truly find where we belong in terms of our purpose, right? A lot of times we think, oh, this one thing is my purpose. No, a lot of times your purpose is intertwined in a multitude of things. Yep. Yeah.
Like, there's the underlying that's the same, but how you execute
will be different.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Let's see. What's one of your favorite hobbies?
Ooh. Aside from wine?
Yes. Okay. Aside from wine. Aside from drinking wine.
Okay.
What's one of your favorite hobbies?
I would say, I am really big into reading right now. It's so interesting. Pre-pandemic, I was so busy that I literally never had, or I convinced myself that I never had time to read, right? unless it was like something work related, I was just like, I don't have time for that. But something about the pandemic brought reading back up to the forefront for me. And honestly, that is one of the places I get my greatest joy and inspiration. I can cuddle up in the corner with a book, and it can, I mean, I love reading books about other people's lives.
Yeah.
Like, that is my classroom. I love reading books about strategy. I am like a big, like, think big, grow rich. Another one I have is it's like the strategy behind, it's some like the strategy behind all strategies. But I'm a big strategy person, so I love stuff that makes you think. But yeah, I can just get into a book and be there and zone out, you know? And it's just so interesting to me because I used to be like, I don't have time to read.
And you
like,
would think you would have more time now, but you wouldn't have more time now because you're growing the business.
Exactly.
But I think that's also speaking to your boundaries, though.
Exactly.
And making time for that.
Exactly. So that's why I said I had convinced myself that I didn't have time, but really I had time.
You had time. What is one show that you love to curl up on the couch and watch with a glass of wine?
Ooh, so I'll be honest, I don't watch a lot of TV.
Okay.
I know. So like sometimes I feel like I got left out the group chat when people start talking about TV, and so I was like, I don't know. But
well, I would say if you have Hulu, shameless. This is not even shameless plug. I just love the show now. You need to watch Reasonable Doubt.
Okay.
I got addicted.
What's that about?
It's about lawyer Jackson, California. I didn't have Hulu, and then I got access to Hulu, and I watched it because I featured it in the newsletter.
Oh, okay.
And so I kept hearing people talk about it. So I was like, let me just see what girl. I binge watched that thing in like 5 days.
Really?
I went on TikTok and I was like, why didn't y'all tell me this show was so good?
Right. So I will say a lot of times what happens with me is I will see people start talking about a show,
and then you have to see what they're talking about.
Then I'll go and watch it. But it'll be like they've watched it, they've talked about it, they reviewed it, and they've moved on. And I'm like, oh, have you seen? And they're like, girl, that was last year.
I posted, and I think season 2 had just ended, so I was like, and it got renewed for season 3, and I said yes. I will have Hulu just for that show. If I don't have Hulu for anything else, it's gonna be for that show. Black creator.
Nice.
Each episode is titled after a Jay-Z song because she's a big
really?
Jay-Z fan. I think it's
Okay,
backed
so now you got
by.
me interested.
It's backed by Keri Washington Simpson Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I used to love watching Keri Washington when she was in what's the one where she was the solver?
Oh, Scandal?
Yes, Scandal.
Yeah, that's the one my friends and I used to have our glass of wine
Oh
with
my
and
God.
popcorn.
Like, yes,
wine
and popcorn.
Yes.
So that was me. Like, I would sit down, watch Scandal, have my wine. Also, How to Get Away with Murder.
We did the whole TGIT lineup.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I would say I go back and watch stuff that has already passed because I don't have time. I usually don't have time to watch it when it's happening. Yeah. But when I do have a day where I'm like, okay, this is definitely a TV binge day, then I'm usually watching something that is old.
That's okay. They put them on all the platforms.
Exactly.
Now.
Exactly. What's really cool and funny is that my kids, again, remember they're 11 and 8. They are right now into watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Really?
I kid you not. When I tell you that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, because I'm like, you are literally watching something that when I was a kid,
I would watch
all the time. Yeah, and they think like organically, they think it's hilarious.
Well, that means that show is timeless.
Exactly.
Some of the shows we used to watch, you look back and you're like, we used to watch this.
Is that right? I'm like, okay, yeah, no,
I'm like, I could
you won't
never
be
watch
watching that.
This was clearly for kids because I could never watch it as an adult. But some stuff like that. Like, I'll watch that if it's on. Of course, Living Single if it's on. Girlfriends if it's on.
Yeah.
I was like, how many times? She's like, how many times have you seen Girlfriends? I said, it just plays in the background sometimes.
Exactly.
It's just timeless.
It reminds you of your childhood,
It's just timeless. Yeah. Okay, one last question. Okay. What was your first job?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so, don't judge me. First job. So my mom, again, I'm third generation entrepreneur.
Okay.
Mom, grandmother, they ran really a chain of hair salons in the South back when women of color were not running salons. So, but she was like, okay, you're going to come to work with me and you're going to learn how to be the receptionist at my job. And I'm like, what? She's like, yes, you're going to learn how to run the front desk. Now, mind you, the countertop was like 6 feet tall, and I was like not 6 feet tall. So I could not even see over the counter. And I'm like, Mom, how am I going to do?
Right.
She's like, oh, don't worry. Girl, she went and stacked some, back then we had telephone books. She went and stacked some yellow telephone books on top of her stool. And she was like, get on up here.
She said you gonna work.
And she was like, today, you gonna greet people when they come in? She was like, and she gave me the whole rundown. You gonna say, hi, how are you? How may I help you? What are you getting done today? They had the 3-ply receipt books, right?
Yep.
Where you had the white copy, the yellow copy, and the people. Y'all know I'm taking you back now. I'm telling my age. Yeah. But that's what they had, and it had their logo up at the top, Rough and Stages. And I would have to write shampoo and blow.
And you tear, you give them their copy.
You tear and give them their copy, and I
yep.
keep, girl, that was my first job.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Listen, it was getting you in the entrepreneur spirit early, so you could do what you're doing now.
Yes, and had no idea what in the world I was doing there, but now I'm like, okay.
All these seeds are planted. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. This
Tell
was
everybody
so much
where
fun.
they can find
Yeah,
Boyd
so we
Cru.
are at Boyd Cru Wines, everything, and it's Boyd Cru, CRU.
Yes.
wines.com on our website, but on Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere is Boyd Cru Wines. And we can't wait to sip outside the lines with you.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. Thank you, Jon'll, for being here. Yeah. Make sure y'all check out Boyd Cru Wines. You can get wine, you can get merch, like what I'm wearing. They got a little bit of everything. You can get gift boxes, gift cards, you can get it all. Make sure you check them out. If you're a wine lover, you know someone who's a wine lover, give them a gift.
Yes.
Wine is a great gift.
It is a great gift.
Is a great
I'm actually going to be talking about that on Monday, but it is a great gift because guess what? It's the one gift that is not going to get thrown away. Right? Like a lot of people worry about, are they going to use it? Are they going to throw it away? And it is the best gift that keeps on giving. Yes. Because you can also give it to someone else.
Yep. And then you introduce them to the wine. Exactly. If they love it, it just keeps going.
Yep.
So thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Kickback with Keri podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. The Kickback with Keri is available wherever you get your podcasts.